For those of you who have been on this YouTube journey with me for a while now, you know that the only thing that I love more than a good movie is the truth. And the truth is in fact hard to come by these days, mostly because a lot of people are afraid of the truth. A lot of people like to live in their bubbles and believe that everything that they know is indisputable. But the reality is that things are never that black and white. And if you dare to be a person who doesn't conform, and doesn't follow along with what the masses are saying, you are typically vilified for it. You are called crazy, unreliable, jealous, angry, a grifter, and a contrarian. I think that's why I related to this Katt Williams interview so much, and why I felt compelled to do a video on it, because I can very much relate to what he's saying, albeit on a much smaller level. Let's put things into perspective this way. Shannon Sharpe, who conducted this interview, said that he's done around 102 interviews on his channel at this point. And this is the first time that he's experienced this level of pushback with people questioning him and his platform. Why do you think, of all interviews, this is the one that's receiving the most pushback? Maybe Katt Williams hit a little bit too close to home. Maybe there are too many people out there who choose to live blissfully ignorant rather than have someone speak freely. The truth is that this is the society that we live in now, but in order to combat that, you cannot allow anyone to bully you into silence. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Katt Williams, quite honestly, has been off my radar for a long time now, and I think that has a lot to do with how he was portrayed by the media and by his contemporaries. And because of the fact that, in Katt's words, he's been blackballed by the industry. And that's mostly because he did not conform to their ways, and he simply knows too much. Now, I'm not the conspiracy guy, but this isn't the first time that we've heard of something like this happening. This is not the first time that we've seen a celebrity kicked out of the cool kids club because he wouldn't play ball.
Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
Dave Chappelle, another very successful and very funny comedian, has talked about similar things in the past. It appears that unless you fall in line and keep your mouth shut, there is a good chance that you will be canceled, and in effect made a mockery of as a way of discrediting you. You see, I was always under the impression that Katt Williams ruined his Hollywood career because of his drug use. That's the stories I always heard, and that's the narrative that was being spun. And we've heard the likes of Kevin Hart himself say as much when trying to discredit Katt's claims. Because that's what they typically do. They paint you as an outcast, like you're out of control, and the public will typically believe them. But according to Katt Williams himself, this couldn't be further from the truth, because he has never in fact touched hard drugs. So according to Katt Williams on the Club Shay podcast, he's been kicked out of the club because he has a tendency to expose lies and keep it real. And based on what we know about the industry, I'm inclined to believe Katt in that situation. Everything is depicted as the ramblings of a madman until it's proven to be true.
The whim of a madman.
So Katt Williams went on this podcast because he had some things that he needed to get off his chest. And Shannon Sharpe, to his credit, has created a platform for people to be able to do that. If you haven't seen the full interview, or at least clips of it, I encourage you to do so, because I found it to be both fascinating and quite revealing. He pretty much exposes everyone from Cedric the Entertainer to Steve Harvey in scathing detail. But there's one part of the interview that I'd like to focus on most in this video because it's the most movie adjacent. And this is, after all, a movie channel, so that would make it relevant. And it's something that I've thought about in the past, and Katt appears to have all but confirmed it.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Now, to be clear, nobody really knows the truth, but Katt does say a lot of things that line up with the theory that Kevin Hart is an industry plant. Now, for those that don't know what an industry plant is, it is defined as a famous person who ostensibly becomes popular through their connections to the industry they work in, yet present themselves as independent and self-made. I've always viewed industry plants as someone who gained fame almost overnight, and have an unusual amount of backing right off the bat without having really proven themselves. Basically a person who was chosen by Hollywood or whatever industry, and backed to be the face of that industry without having really earned it. And this is what Katt Williams is accusing Kevin Hart of being in the interview. And if you think about how Kevin Hart was essentially plucked from obscurity and pushed as the face of comedy for some time now, a lot of this makes sense. I know there's a lot of people out there who enjoy Kevin Hart's stand-up and even his movies, but I've always found his meteoric rise to fame to be pretty suspect.
Wait a minute. Hang on a second.
I've never really thought Kevin Hart was all that funny, and I never really understood the hype that was around him. It's very similar to how I don't understand how certain movies get fake hype around them. And this is something that I've talked about extensively on this channel. It very much feels like someone decided that this thing is going to be the thing in the future, and they back that thing or person in a way where it's impossible for them to fail. And we know that general audiences, in most instances, like a good bandwagon to jump on. They are easily persuaded into liking something that they are told they are supposed to like. And that's kind of what Kevin Hart has always felt like to me. When he was being compared to Eddie Murphy almost immediately, the same Eddie Murphy who I consider to be one of, if not the greatest, stand-up comedian and comedic actor that has ever lived. When that happened, red flags started going up for me everywhere.
Ha ha, very funny, motherfucker.
It's very similar to how they compare every single comic book movie that comes out to The Dark Knight, yet in reality, none of them compare. Kevin Hart has never had these iconic roles like Axel Foley or Reggie Hammond, or hell, even the Nutty Professor for that matter. Kevin Hart consistently plays the exact same character, who is just a version of himself in almost every single movie he's a part of. And almost every single one of those movies is completely forgettable and interchangeable with the previous movies that he made. Who can sit there and honestly tell me that they are excited for the next Kevin Hart movie?
Liar! Liar!
Now some might call Katt Williams bitter or jealous for saying these things, because that spot, quote unquote, could have been his. But to me, that's just another form of deflection from the truth. To me, it feels like it's entirely possible that Katt Williams wasn't given that spot, if he was considered for that spot, because Hollywood quickly realized that he's not the type to conform. And Kevin Hart was looked at and chosen as someone who would conform. Hollywood knew that Kevin Hart was the safe bet. Like I said, I love the truth. And to me, if you pay attention, you can always tell when someone's being genuine. Especially if you put your bias aside and actually listen to what they have to say. And Katt Williams, for all of his flaws, seems like a genuine person. And it doesn't feel like he has any reason to lie. And genuine people are very hard to come by in this day and age, especially coming out of Hollywood. The way that he talks about comedy in this interview tells me that he takes his craft very seriously. He actually cares about what he puts out. And it appears that he has very little respect for people who don't put in the same kind of effort and take shortcuts.
Put some effort into it!
And as a content creator who sees garbage content being pushed on this platform daily, I can relate to that. But those people are playing the game. They're taking shortcuts just to get subs and views. And I'd much rather grow in a very natural way by being myself than pretending to be someone that I'm not. And I think that's exactly what Katt Williams was talking about here, and I now have a lot of respect for him for saying so. Remember, the truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. And as Katt Williams said, the truth doesn't need motivation. I think a lot of people can learn from these words if they open their minds just a little bit. And all I can hope for is that people start to wake up and start to question things more rather than just accepting whatever they're being told.
Y'all be cool. Right on.